So it's another business update video. This is actually my second time recording it today. It's really annoying. I did the first one, took all this apart, took the table out, started throwing, made a few of these, and then realized I didn't plug in my microphone cable properly. It wasn't fully in, so it just became all static. And here we are. But it's good because I think there's a few things I missed mentioning. So yeah, here's to tick 2. So firstly, there's 2 weeks until the shop launch. It's the 2nd today and the launch is on 15th. So yeah, exactly two weeks. So I've got these guys that I'm quite happy with. I've got 5 of these taller kind of tumbler and also about 6 shorter ones, or maybe 5. I'm not happy with this one. Let's just say 5. So there's a lot of things that need to be fired. I've got a lot of greenware. There's about 12 of these. This, I think, looking at the sizing, it's going to be more of a rice bowl or an ice cream bowl. I mean, like, oh, I need to be careful not to knock this because this is still wet. So I did a bit of counting this morning. I think there's 5, 6, and then 12 of those bowls, which makes it 33. And I've got a lot of smaller pieces over there. Can't use that little stack. And then I've got a bunch of plates being dried. I've got a few things here. So I think all up I have about 50 pieces so far. I don't have a set amounts that I'm aiming for, but I guess the more the better. And it's not necessarily like because it's going to sell out right away. It's more so I have a buffer for the next update where there'll be a bit of stock already. Yeah, so all this will have to be fired this week. Pretty early next week, the latest for bisque firing, and then glaze firing. The latest is probably next Friday, really, to be honest, because then I get it back on the Monday after. Yeah, so I think in terms of making, anything I throw this week might not get fired because they have to be bone dry before they're fired. So I think this might be it. So let's say about 50 to 60 items. And there's also a few of these guys. So yeah, in saying that, with the shop launch and the Instagram getting to 1,000 followers, I've decided to do a little pre-sale giveaway. So with Instagram at 1,000 followers and the sales coming up soon, I've decided to do a little giveaway, and this is the little prize. So it's a stoneware kind of tea bowl. It's not quite a chow one. It's more this is more Chinese kind of shape than Japanese, but this is basically one of a kind. It's the only one I've ever made, and it's the only one like it that I'll probably make just because I don't use this clay anymore. The shape I'll probably do again in the future, but there's nothing in this shop update. Most of the stuff here you see don't really have the same sort of softer returns, kind of like, especially around the lip, which I actually really like. I don't know why I didn't do more of them. I think the straight shape is good, and it's also easier to make. So I think that's why I started off with that. But maybe for the next one, I'll start doing things that are a little bit more, I don't know, curvy like that, which I really like. So in order to win this, just simply go on the Instagram and follow the instructions. It's the latest post. It's basically just tagging people and following the channel and, you know, stuff like that. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it's Australia only. That's just because shipping is an issue with international with so much delay. I've heard that it takes up to like a month or 2 months for some stuff to get through. So for now, this is just going to be an Australia only event, but in the future, I'll definitely do more international ones. Like, it's not so much the cost of shipping, it's just I don't want it to take so long to get to someone and you kind of lose momentum of the whole thing. So that's out of the way. We've talked about that. So, in terms of the glaze, so this is actually the glaze that I've been developing for the last God knows how long, and it's finally finished. It reacts quite differently depending on the clay. On this clay, it's a little bit more of a matte surface. On this kind of Raku gold clay, it's similar kind of matteness. I think I've got another bowl in this kind of clay, and I need to make sure that I do the glaze a little bit thicker because I think it can afford to go a bit thicker but still have a lot of the texture and especially the little iron spots showing. There's something about it that's quite nice. And even though this was fired in an electric kiln, you still kind of get that, you know, almost reduction looking spots. But most of the stuff, so like the bowls, for example, would look exactly like this. So this is the number 7 speckle clay with the glaze. I haven't named the glaze yet. I don't even know what to do. It's a base glaze, so who knows? I'll figure it out. Probably do need a name for it though, especially once the shop has a few more different glazes, just to differentiate them. But yeah, I think this is a nice, simple kind of glaze. It's a bit more modern. It's not as rustic as I would like, but it's a great base to start off with. I think I'm going to do a lot of color tests, which won't make it to the first shop update, but it will definitely be in the next one. I'm just waiting for test tiles to come back to be bisfire so I can start dipping glazes and adding colorants to it. This is the same thing, just in a larger bowl. So it's a lot smoother on this clay, which is nice, especially for functional weight. I think this is important. It feels very solid. It feels very... yeah, just nice to the touch. And I've done all the tests to it. If you've seen it on my Instagram, I've been doing a bit of like torture tests to the glazes. I put lemon on it. So there's a few things I do. Lemon juice, kind of heat treatment. So I put it in the freezer for overnight, put it straight into the oven, and then put it straight back into ice water just to test the thermal expansions. And so far, it's been perfect. So I'm very happy with that glaze, and I'm really glad that it's done. So again, this is in the old clay, which I don't use anymore. It comes out a little bit more matte, and the speckle's slightly different, but that's just more based on the clay itself. Yeah, so all these will, so this is for the giveaway. All these will be for sale. Just to give you an idea, this is all the stuff I've ordered recently just for the first sale. So I got packaging, which includes these wrapping, which I'll go through in a bit, cardboard boxes, paper tape, everything's recyclable, everything's as sustainable as possible at this stage. I had to buy a stamp to stamp on the cardboard box. I had to order... What else did I get? Actually, maybe there's not that many. Oh, I had to get printer ink. So I've got a photo printer at home, and actually I've got one there here. So I've been testing little kind of thank you cards. But the problem is, and this is completely unrelated to ceramics, it's just I'm dealing with the profile, and it's a new laptop that hasn't been set up with the printer. Hopefully it's a software issue that I need to fix, but the color's just not right. Like it turned black and white. Like that's not how it meant to look. But so basically I can just print it out on, so these are bamboo paper, which got a really nice texture to it. And then I just need guillotine to cut them in quarters, and I think they're perfect. And you can write on them quite nicely with a kind of fine line art pen. So yeah, so that's another thing for the sales. And yeah, it's actually not as many as I thought. I ordered a few more things, but I just realized they weren't for the sale, they were for throwing. So these new tools, some of you might have seen this on Instagram. They're quite popular among, I guess, the ceramicists and potter who are actively on Instagram that a lot of people follow. I'll link the stuff down below just because they're really well made. They're solid brass, and I did a bit of throwing, so I made these guy with this. And the good thing is, because this is quite a decent length, I think. I don't have my ruler here, but I think this is about 10 centimeter maybe. Yeah, probably actually more than that, maybe like 14. And because it doesn't have the flex like these guys, it's so much easier to just hold it along the wall and then just go straight up without this kind of movement. So when I threw this, I did a cylinder first, and then I opened it up, and I was able to get a perfectly straight cylinder quite easily. And comparing to the wooden tools are great as well. So this is a little bit small, and this is very typical. I think most people start off with one of these, and they're perfectly fine and they're great. The only issue I have with them is sometimes as you're throwing and you're pulling kind of, you're pulling the wall, for example, it tends to grip. I don't know if it needs a polish or not, but I find that because this also absorbs water a little bit. So like this one I've been using this morning and I can feel that it's a little bit wet. So that might have caused a bit of suction. But with the brass tool, I found that as long as you're angling it, so instead of going perpendicular like this, if I angle it a little bit, it doesn't stick at all, and it's perfectly smooth. It's probably the smoothest surface I can get. I can get the same thing with these guys, but they're just not as solid. Like once I lock my arm in, this is not going anywhere, and it's just, I don't know. I see people comment on this and say how much this has like changed their lives and stuff. And while I don't think it's that extreme, I actually think it's a really good tool. And I wish I had this when I was making these cups, because these I had to trim quite a bit just to get it perfectly straight. But if I have this, it's like, it's perfect. The height's perfect. It's easy to use. And because of this tapered corner, I can go quite low right onto the bat, where sometimes if you get a shape like this, you can't actually reach all the way down in terms of just the bottom corner. So for example, with these, you can like, you know, just use the tip downwards. I haven't really used much of the curve, but I think when I make bowls, like if you look at this, it's kind of perfect. So this could be really handy for bowl making as well. And I also got the smaller version just because why not? It came in a set and it was a little bit cheaper anyway. So yeah, new tools, love it. I'm kind of scattered all over the place because I'm trying to think of all the things I've said in the first take. So in terms of packaging, the idea is I want it to be as sustainable as possible. Especially being a business, if I'm going to be sending out packages, you know, quite regularly and quite often, hopefully, if I use bubble wrap and plastics and stuff, the amount that I'll end up using is just, it's too much, basically. So I have gone with these bubble wrap alternative. They're called Rampack, Germany, I think. And they're basically kind of craft papers, but they've got this cut in them, which means as you pull them, they create this honeycomb grid, and that combined with the tissue paper. So you have the tissue paper to protect the surface of your product, and then, for example, you'll wrap it up, you know. Like if I was wrapping that mug, I'll probably use a little bit more, but so it creates a little bit of air and just gives a little bit of protection. Normally I'll do maybe 2 to 3 kind of layers, but no, these are great. And then in terms of void fill, I'll use craft. I've got this massive roll of craft paper. It weighs like a ton, and I'm going to scrunch that up and just put that into the corner of the boxes, and just to really make sure that the package is, you know, in the center. It's not right up against the cardboard box, because that's where any impact could break it. I haven't decided if I want a double box or not. I'll have to do a few tests to see how much strength it has. So I might use some of my old pieces in the kitchen and just use them as a test and just kick them around and see what happens. So I'm going to do a whole video on just packaging alone, because I think that's quite important. Again, as any like e-commerce or retailers who plan to sell a decent amount of things, the impact of using a sustainable product versus not is quite big. As a business, there's no reason not to be a little bit more conscious about these things, even though it does cost me more. Like a roll of that was $100. And I think that gives me about 130 meters. So if I use a meter per product, that's 100 and something products, which means it's almost $1 per piece just to wrap it. It does add up, but again, if I start now and then just price that into the products and make sure I'm aware of the cost of shipping and all that stuff, I think it's worth doing. And I think customers appreciate businesses that are a little bit more conscious nowadays, and also aligns with my personal beliefs. So yeah, win-win-win situation. Yeah, so that's September done. October, like I said, it's going to be the first sales, which means it's the next 2 weeks is going to be about finishing off these things and packaging and all that stuff. I have to take photographs of everything and some promotional videos and things like that for Instagram, which means I probably won't have time to do YouTube very often, which is a shame. I'll try and, I really want to, but time's a bit limited right now. I think this stage, it's a bit tricky, but once the sale's over, or once it's been launched, it will give me a little bit more time to do YouTube videos, because that's definitely something I want to do. So yeah, so for next 2 weeks, we'll be finishing off all the stuff, getting it ready for the sale. And then once the sale happens, it'll just be packaging, shipping, and all that stuff. I don't know, who knows what's going to happen. Like, it could all come in at once. It could really be spread out over the next few weeks. Yeah, I mean, there's no expectation. I think, especially with something this new, most businesses don't make money in the first couple of years, and you hear that a lot. And to a certain extent, I think that's very true. A business like this is a little bit different because the overhead's quite low. Like, there's no shop rent, there's no massive, marketing budget and things like that. So everything is quite scaled down, and it's all done by one person. So there's no cost of labor and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'll go through this I think I need to do a dedicated video of how much it's cost so far, just in terms of 1, getting into ceramics, and 2, getting things ready for sales. Like, a lot of things like the packaging and the website, Instagram ads, just material in general. Like, there's a lot of cost involved, and there's no way I'll make a profit even if I sell everything in this first sale. There's absolutely no way. It's not even close. But if I can sell stuff, that means I'll have more resources to make more stuff, and then it expands. And once it scales to a certain size and I'm selling quick enough and the workflow becomes a lot more efficient, then, they will start to see a bit of a profit. But if you want to get rich quick, this is not the way to do it. I think I've definitely spent in the range of like 15 to 20 grand at this stage. It's hard to say because it depends. If you include all this YouTube stuff, the equipment and all that, it's a little bit more expensive. I would say 10 grand is a pretty safe bet as to how much I've spent so far, purely on pottery related things. So clay material, the wheels, the equipment, the tools, the shelves, and like these sort of things. I think 10 grand is probably about right. And then including the packaging. So I spent, like, for example, the packaging order I bought cost me about $700. The biggest cost was to get paper tape, it needs a dedicated dispenser because it's a water activated tape. So, and the cheapest one I could get is like a manual, basically just a giant tape thing where you put the roll and there's a little sponge, and then as you pull it, it runs the tape through the sponge and that activates the glue, and then you tape it on. And that's the cheapest method, and that costs $230 Australian for the machine itself. The tape you can only get in bulk, so I had to get 6 rolls that are about this big, and that was about $70. And then that roll was $90 to $100, and then boxes was quite expensive. No, boxes were probably the cheapest thing in the whole thing, but like it all added up to a certain amount. And there's a lot of one-off costs. For example, that tape dispenser, even though it's a little bit pricey, it's not going to break within the next God knows how long. Like it's solid metal. It's going to last forever, to be honest. The only thing is I might want to upgrade to an electronic one in the future. If the whole business scales up and there's a lot more packing going on, then it makes sense to have something that increases the workflow and makes things a little bit more efficient. But again, that's all future shit. So yeah, so there's a lot of costs involved if you want to do it right. And for example, I had my branding design, which was I won't mention the branding costs because I've also mentioned who I've used on my Instagram and stuff like that. And I don't want to. So usually I'm very transparent with any costs in terms of business and things like that, and how much I'm making through all this ceramic stuff. But when it comes to other people's rates, I won't publicize them just because their rate changes, and I don't want people to go to them with what they found out here, expecting the price, even though it might have gone up, or they might have given me a special, or, So in terms of costs that's related to people I know, like freelancers and stuff like that, then I won't disclose it. But any costs involved in terms of buying stuff, I mean, it's things that you can find out there in public anyway. So I don't mind being transparent. And in terms of sales figures and stuff as well, I'm more than happy to release all that information just because it makes an interesting video. And it also, yeah, there's a whole kind of business idea that is based on being quite transparent. And I think there's not enough time in this video to go through that. So there's a few things I want to do. When I start building a team and having, people who help with marketing and production and all that, I want this to be a business, like a actual group of people working on the business and not just a kind of one person maker / owner / everything. And when that happens, I want to dedicate a percentage of the net profit to everyone's bonuses. So it'll be, I think right now I'm thinking more of a quarterly thing. So every quarter, let's say 20% of the net profit goes to all the employees equally. So it doesn't matter if you're working in retail, it doesn't matter if you're a marketing manager, you get the same amount of bonus. And that's kind of my idea of being a bit more fair and a bit more, I don't know, it seems morally correct, if that makes sense. I also want to do a few things in terms of charities and in terms of respecting the, Aboriginals in Australia and, the traditional owners of the land and making sure all that is acknowledged. And basically there's something called paying the rents that businesses have been doing lately where a small percentage of the profit goes to either charity funds or dedicated funds, which benefits the Aboriginal community in Australia. Because basically, if you're not aware of Australians' history, it was colonized, people came here, took the land from them, and then this is where all the civilization came from. A whole lot of terrible things that has happened to the native people of Australia. So I think that should something be on everyone's mind. And I'm not doing that now because the business is so small that it's not making a profit. So that's extra bits to think about. But it's something that I'll definitely do, and hence why I believe in a very transparent business model where everything's public as much as possible, and one, for entertainment reason, and two, just for accountability in terms of how the alley as a business uses its money. Yes, we have to make a profit, and yes, I want to make money from the business, but if the business has the ability to generate a certain amount of income, and hopefully it's a level that we can support employers and we can support contractors and people who can work with us and collaborate with us to create more stuff, and then just to build up on that community, but also be a socially conscious business because we have the power to create that income and use that income to help those who are in need and to make sure that the team is taken care of. So it's a whole very complicated thing, and I know I said I wasn't going to get into it, and there's a lot more to it in my mind. But those sort of stuff won't happen till I'm estimated at least 3, 4, 5 years until it becomes more of a full-time business that I can hire people. But I guess it's good for me to get it kind of out there this early on. And again, just more accountability for the future. And just as a reminder, so at least that's what I'm trying to achieve now. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, so that's kind of gone a bit longer than I really wanted it to be. And I might have to edit down on the rambling a little bit, but thank you for watching again. And if you're in Australia, do check out this one. Do check out the giveaway. It's completely free and you get a free nice little item. So yeah, lots of work to be done, but it's quite exciting and I'm really looking forward to getting the ball rolling. So see you in November. Hopefully I do something before then, but yeah, most likely November at this stage.